are back home after 6 weeks on the road. We traveled up near to the Canadian border, visiting Glacier National Park and many other national parks and state parks in between. And along the way, I acquired approximately 500 gigabytes of video and photographs. And now what do I do with them? How do I organize them in any way that would be helpful to anyone else? So I thought I would start with just kind of putting things that belong together, and maybe start out with talking about the apps, the phone apps that I used a lot and that were helpful in finding campsites and finding gasoline and keeping track of expenses and those sorts of things. Many of these you've probably heard about, but I might go into a little bit more detail in how they operate. Because when you get to a certain age, like mine, a lot of people are resistant to learning any kind of technology. And so when we hear things mentioned, we think, oh, that would be great. We might even go so far as to download the application, but we really never get into it. So I might get into a little bit of detail. So if you want to just see the applications, a list of them, you can look in the description box. If you want just a little bit more dialogue, then stay tuned. So the first thing I'm going to mention is Google Maps, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But it's how to use Google Maps to locate campgrounds and attractions and things like that that you might want to identify before you actually leave on a trip. And I'm not going to go into how to do that because Courtney, at another YouTuber that I like, A Stream in Life, so their YouTube channel is called A Stream in Life, and she's done a really good video on how to use Google Maps to identify campgrounds and things like that. So I will put the link to that below, and you can go over there and see how she has set that up. And so that's really what I use for kind of pre-planning a trip. When I watch a YouTuber, a travel type YouTuber, and they mention a campground that they particularly liked, I put that on my map. And some of these people actually have whole maps, and you can download their map to see where they've camped and where they've been and things like that. So that's a good thing to start early and get that going. That actually helped us out once. I had recalled that somebody had mentioned a campground in an area where we were, and so I went to the map, and yes, there it was, and we were able to stay there. So Google Maps is great. Now the second one, the first app is one that lots of people use, and it's called Gas Buddy. The one thing that I wish Gas Buddy did was identify what type of diesel the gas station actually sells, because we drive a diesel Sprinter van, and some states have upped their biodiesel to as much as 20%, and Mercedes recommends you do not use biodiesel with 20%. I don't know what other state percentages are. They're probably maybe the 5% range. I don't know why some states identify diesel as diesel number 2, like they do in California, or in other states they just say diesel. In Washington, Idaho, most other states we ran into, the diesel is just listed as diesel. So I never was quite sure what we were getting. But we did notice that our gas mileage seemed to be better in those states where it was just listed as diesel. So I'm guessing that where our gas mileage maybe took a dip, it's because there was more biodiesel in the fuel, and of course biodiesel has less BTUs in it, so you're not going to get the same kind of gas mileage you will if you're just burning diesel. So that's the one thing I wish that Gas Buddy did, but they don't. Maybe if enough people suggest it, maybe they will. So this is what the Gas Buddy app looks like. It's this one up here in the upper left. It says Gas Buddy. And when it opens up, I've already set my vehicle up. So the first thing you can do is hit Find Gas Near You. Now, if you've already set it up, then it already knows what kind of gas you want, that you're looking for, because down here, so when you go over to Find Gas, this is where you'll enter the parameters that you want it to use. You can enter by price and distance, or one or the other. Here's where you enter your fuel, whether you want regular, premium, diesel, or whatever you're looking for. You can also enter the amenities that you want in a gas station. Maybe you're looking for a car wash, so you can tap on car wash, or maybe you need propane, you can tap on that. And there are lots of different choices you have here. And then you can also have it look for particular brands. Even Costco is listed on there. Of course, Costco rarely sells diesel. And so then you can either use your current location, or you can enter a city. So Minden, Nevada. Here comes the stations that are near Minden, Nevada. Now some don't have prices. Now I know that Maverick is a good gas station, and their price is often the cheapest around. Now there's no price here reported, but if you determine to go to that station, then you can enter the prices. You can report the prices and help another traveler out. And you can also see the stations on a map. So maybe you're traveling. The second app that I used the most was AllStays. Now AllStays is great. It lists, it allows you to filter out for so many things. So you can just get national parks, or you can just get Forest Service, or whatever, or KOAs, whatever it is you want. So it's really a great app, and I use it with others because you just never know where you are. You might be in a spot where you can't find any campgrounds, and so you may look for you may be looking for a boondocking spot. So here is the AllStays app, and you can just use your location, so it's identifying my location, or you can enter a city. So let's say we were visiting South Lake Tahoe, so I would type in South Lake Tahoe, and I would then hit the return button or the done button, and it will come up. Now here it's identified basically everything on their list. So it's telling me where I can get LP, it's identifying private campgrounds, public campgrounds, etc. But I like to use the filter button and filter out the things that I don't, or just include the things I do want. So I want things like Forest Service, national parks, public lands like BLM, state and provincial parks, things like that, and then I'll hit done, and it will then narrow the search down to those things that I've asked for. Now here's, for example, then you touch on the identifying mark, and this is a Forest Service campground. It's called Fallen Leaf Campground, and we've stayed there many times. It's very nice. And then you click on the little eye, and it tells you all about the campground. It'll give you a kind of an idea of the cost with the dollar symbol, the dollar sign symbol. You can check out their website. You can either have it give you directions in an Apple map or in a Google map. That's what the A map or G map stands for. And then it gives you the average rating, and that's been really helpful to use. So that is that one, and then here are state parks. The symbol is SP, and you do, again, the same thing. It'll give you more information, how many websites, what kind of services they have, that sort of thing. I will sometimes use Campendium if I'm not finding what I want. I think Campendium is probably better on a laptop than it is on an iPhone or iPad. But that's one that has sometimes been helpful, but not as much. And then the RecGov Camp is the app for reserving sites at things like national parks, Forest Service property. Another favorite app, call it the third one, is AllTrails. And we like to hike every day, so we're always looking for some place to hike. And AllTrails is really great because it lists so many hikes, and it tells you so much about the hike. You can read other hikers' reviews of the spots. and it really helps you identify which hikes you want to go on a particular day.
So AllTrails allows you to download just the map that you want for a particular hiking trail. And the way I use it is, so for example, let's say we're up at South Lake Tahoe. I will type in South Lake Tahoe. And then it gives you this long list of hikes in the area. But this isn't very helpful because there are too many hikes in the area. But if you hit map, then it will start to narrow it down a little bit. Now these numbers correspond with how many trails there are in that particular area. So if I touch this thing that says number 10 and zoom in, then you can start to see the individual trails right there. And if you touch on that little kind of a raindrop, then it will tell you what that trail is. That's the big meadow. And if you then touch on that, it will take you to a little bit more specific information. It tells you how long the hike is, what you should expect to see when you're on the hike. And then if you come down a little bit, you can view the full map, and you can actually download that section of the map. And I find this really helpful. It tells you how many feet of elevation gain, and it also allows you to see kind of the whole hike in perspective. So if this is an out and back, it's not a round trip. So it's going to show you both legs, the out and then the back. So that is quite helpful. And then you just download that map so it's available when you're out in the backcountry where there's likely not to be any kind of cell service. And also when you're in any kind of a popular area like South Lake Tahoe, like Mammoth Lakes, any of those national parks, they have limited cell towers, and when you have lots of tourists there, they're overtaxing those cell towers. There are plenty of times in South Lake Tahoe where you might not even be able to get a text message out. That's how heavily they are taxed. So that is the AllTrails, and that's a favorite app for finding hiking trails anywhere you are in the country.
So the fourth app we used every single day was Dark Sky, and we particularly like Dark Sky. It seemed to be the most accurate, and it gives you very localized weather conditions.
Okay, so this is the Dark Sky application. It's really helpful for knowing what the weather is going to be like that day, and so you can better plan your outings. It gives you the temperatures for the next basically 24 hours, maybe 18 hours. And you can also check the precipitation by touching on one of the bottom bars. You can check the wind speed, what's the wind going to be, humidity, and then for the week ahead. So if you want to avoid the heat, maybe you wait later in the week. Maybe if there's a rainstorm coming, it'll give you an idea of what that would look like for the rest of the week. So we use that a lot. And then if you scroll back, you can actually see the satellite radar and know where the weather patterns are trending. And you can turn it any way you like. So Dark Sky is great.
The fifth app that I used every single day is called Roadtrip, and that's the way I tracked all of our expenses. So there's basically a column for fuel, and then there's one for expenses. This is really geared toward car expenses, but I just lumped all of our other expenses, food, campgrounds, anything that we purchased went into the expense column, and all the fuel went into the fuel column.
Okay, so here's Roadtrip. You can enter your vehicle information and all of that, but down here at the bottom is where you will see where you enter things. The first mistake I made was forgetting to put my fuel in the fuel tab. So you want to put all your fuel in the fuel tab and not mix it in with other expenses. Now this app is really meant for your car, but I use it to keep track of all of our expenses, food, campsites, museums, attractions, everything that we spent, I entered into this application. And so you can see, here's an example you can see of the kind of gas mileage we got on this particular week. And if the only problem is if you forget to do that and put it in the expenses, then you'll all of a sudden see, oh my gosh, I got 37 miles per gallon. Well, that's that's not accurate, but these are accurate, and so that's really helpful to kind of see your gas mileage and then expenses when in the expenses area.
The sixth app that I use every day that we're driving is called V for Wiki, and it is really fun for when you're bored on the drive and you just want to know, what's that hill over there, or just to kind of see what's around you. You can quickly see, maybe there used to be a community 20 mile or 15 miles away into the hills, and it will tell you about the community, census data, that sort of thing.
So here is the V for Wiki app, and it will zoom in on your location. And as soon as it finds you, it will then give you all these kind of points where you can read more about the area that you're in. So you can touch on a point of interest, and then you can read all about that area. So that can be fun if you're driving through the desert and you would like to know a little bit more about what you're seeing, and perhaps someplace where you might want to actually stop. You can also scroll to an area, so you can shrink this down and tap on the screen, and then it will zoom in and you can see. So here's some tree named Genesis, and it will tell you about this giant sequoia, the 7th largest tree in the world. So V for Wiki is an interesting application.
And then the 7th app that I'm going to mention is called State Lines. Now, I liked this one because if maybe you're 10, 15, 20 miles out from crossing the state line and you're thinking, well, I wonder if the gas price is going to be higher in that state or lower. Now, State Lines doesn't tell you that the gas prices are going to be cheaper or not. But what it does do, it tells you what the gas tax is, so you know that if the gas tax is significantly less, you might be able to save some money if you just wait until you cross the border. And then you could use Gas Buddy, of course, to zero in on which gas station you want to use. The other thing I like about it is it tells you sales taxes. It breaks down a lot of the differences between states. It tells you what, is there a helmet law in this state and maybe not in the other. So if you're interested if you're out west and you're interested in buying something that where the state doesn't charge sales tax, then you could look on the app and see what the sales tax is and find out, oh, Montana has no sales tax and Oregon has no sales tax. Or you might find one state charges sales tax on everything, including food, and the one you're leaving does not charge sales tax on food. So you might make your purchasing decisions based on what the tax situation is in any given state.
So here is State Lines, and if we want to take a look at 2 states, so let's say Washington and Oregon. So I'm in here, check out Oregon, and what you do, you can read about, here's the sales tax, there's no sales tax. They tell you what the gas tax is and the diesel tax, so you can see the difference. And then the tax on alcohol, wine, beer, cigarettes, that sort of thing. If you scroll over to the next page, you can see what the seatbelt law is, child safety seat laws, motorcycle helmet laws, cell phone laws, texting bans, smoking radar detectors, whether they're legal or not, and then the default speed limits. And then on the last page, it tells you whether you can make a left turn on red, a right turn on red, U-turns, that sort of thing. Very helpful. Oh, and here's the last page. This might be particularly helpful to RVers because it tells you how long you can stay in a rest area overnight. And there's quite a difference between states. California is only 8 hours, but here Oregon is 12 hours. So there's a lot of interesting information that might help you as you travel between states. Now let's check out Washington. Now here's Washington State, and we'll scroll to the first page. So it tells you what the sales tax is, the gas tax, the alcohol taxes, seat belts. It's basically the same information, and it can really be helpful as you cross those state lines.
So clearly this is not an exclusive list of applications that you can use while you're traveling. There are actually quite a few more that are fun or good, but I thought I'd keep this down to usable size. And I really encourage you to play around with the apps. Don't be intimidated by them, and find out which ones work for you and which ones don't. So now, as far as next videos go, I probably will do one on our favorite campsites and maybe our favorite hikes, favorite parks, that sort of thing. And those will be coming out in the weeks ahead, so I can at least use some of that 500 gigs of video and photos that we took along this trip. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time.
Not too cold, not too warm. The wind has died down. The sun is setting. You still have snow in the Sierras. There's something about the Owens Valley that just always is appealing. You know, it doesn't matter how many times you come up here. There's always something new to discover. And just a beautiful place.